Hello, welcome to yet
Hi,
another
everybody.
edition of Printheads with Mike Horston and myself. Jack is still away. He's doing his Radio Christmas. Actually, it's the first live show this morning, he tells me. So, wish you well, Jack, and we look forward to seeing you again. Today, we are going to be discussing everything you wanted to know about web to print, but were afraid to ask. And we have a special guest with us today, somebody that I've known for, over 20 years, really. He's an expert in the field of web to print. He's a managing director of a company called Vpress, which is a web to print company that helps people setting up web to print and putting web together. But Tim Cox is a man who likes to help people. One of the things that I like about him is his humanity and the fact that he really does like to go out of his way to help people. And it's something he does to, it's the sort of thing over on a Friday night when you finish your week's work, Mike, and you're sitting down having a glass of wine with a wife and, you've had a heck of a week. But if you've helped one or two people out, then you get that good weekend feeling. And Tim's that kind of guy. So we're gonna bring Tim on in a minute. But what we're going to do and how we're going to proceed today, so that Tim can explain about web to print for us, is that I'm going to
Can I
be.
scrutinize him? Can I, kind of?
You can, yeah, we can.
All right.
I'm going to be the Acme digital print company with a crappy old litho printer as well as some kind of digital printing engine and a bit of finishing and so forth. And you can be the wide format man. Yeah,
Let me be the sign guy.
yeah.
I'll be the sign guy because they're small guys, they're large guys, but I mean these litho guys, it's always litho. I don't like litho.
Well, it's in my blood. I can't help it. So if you cut the top of my head off, Mike, it says printer all the way from the top of my brains to my feet. So,
No problem.
so without further ado, let's introduce Tim Cox. Tim, hello.
Tim,
Welcome.
hi, how are you?
We did say that we were going to drop a grenade in your lap, Tim, and let it go off and see what happens. So,
As long as you're prepared to catch it when I throw it back, I'm cool with that.
No problem.
as per
Happy to
my
have you on the show.
as per my introduction, Tim, we thought we'd split it in two ways. I'd be the sort of digital print company with a bit of ailing litho, some old Sakurai in the corner, that's all covered in ink. And my printing company is the type of place you want to wipe your feet on the way out. But the problem is I don't have web to print. Right, and it's not something that you don't wake up in the morning and want web to print. You don't think I must have it, but customers have started talking about it, and that bothers me. I don't like customers telling me what I need to do because I reckon it's going to cost me money, and I'm a lifestyle. I want to keep in business, but there are contracts that I'm pitching for that I might ignore, and I don't want to do that because right now I need every penny that counts. So the Acme digital printing company that manufactures everything that you see Roadrunner using when he's trying, or the what's his name, the wolf trying to catch Roadrunner. So if it's a box of rockets, I've produced the box, I've kitted the rockets, I've done the instruction leaflets that he always ignores, and everything else. That's my type of business. Mike, what about you? What's your company?
Well, I'm the poor guy. I have a couple of printers. I'm a sign guy. I work hard, long hours, long days. I try to minimize staff because they're expensive. And I've been struggling for the last 5 years. Trying to make money. And so I'm hoping Tim is going to be my savior. And I'll definitely ask him why.
Well, there you go, Tim. So
Saviour. Wow.
yeah,
There you go.
so that's our
Best I go
perspective.
then.
Yeah, but that's our perspective on it. Okay, so I mean, in your own words, Tim, I mean, what is the situation in the market with web to print and what's going on, and how come it hasn't after all these years, 20 years, it still hasn't really made that massive rise, has it? It's not, well, the last conversation we had was about 2 years ago, and you said to me about 35% of printers have got it. So I was shocked at that. So has that changed?
It's a difficult one to say. All the stats that are out there are very generic. And you'll find that they'll do a European set of stats that will take in not just I don't know, let's say the developed EU countries, but those that are less developed. So slightly skewed figures. It's never particularly accurate. Guesstimate, even if it was 50%, I would say that probably 35, 40% of them are actually using it with any kind of gusto or any kind of result. I think historically it's been one of those technologies that's been purchased as a knee-jerk without any kind of plan in response to a demand from a customer that I guess is either because they are about to lose business or they're in a kind of a tender or a battle against other competitors that are offering it, or it could be that they're just fed up with losing business to printers that have put their customers onto web to print, and that the company that's obviously lost business to that printer are fed up with not only losing to someone who's got an online platform, but finding out how impossible it is to move them off of it once they're on. So yeah, I think it's difficult to say the stats, but I think it's the same as a lot of technologies in our industry. And if I say our industry, I mean print in all its glory, whether it is signage, litho printing, merchandising. It doesn't matter what it is. It's that lovely overused phrase of the print sector, which I think a lot of people forget is actually part of the wider communications set. You know, we are a bit that tags within the world of marketing. I think ultimately printers per se are amazing as manufacturers of beautiful pieces of art or functional pieces of packaging or instructional pieces of point of sale, whatever it might be. But I think that they fail sometimes to look deeper into their business. There seems to be a drive constantly to get more business in because they've got to increase their turnover. And they don't always look at the most important factor, which is obviously helps them live, which is the profit. And the only way a lot of print companies nowadays are actually able to increase the profit in their business is if they do as Mike said, they start rationalizing staff, they beat suppliers down on price, or they take a sensible view and they look at automation. And I guess if we forget what web to print or online platforms like procurement platforms and brand management platforms can do, because they're all different phrases for different people with different focuses on the market, but they're all the same thing. I think if they stop looking at the lumps of tin that have to have the floor reinforced and the roof off to get it in, and stop talking about feeds and speeds and quality and service, start looking at their business and linking up current silos of excellence, they will actually bring back profit to the business. So one of the things that web to print does is it not just doesn't just allow the company to lock the branding or the agency by allowing them a very fluid, time-saving, management information riddled environment to come in and select their brand, procure their brand, proof their brand, order it and manage it. But if the printer looks downstream into their own production environment, they're able to integrate into their MIS, Management Information System, which is governing obviously all of their time, motion management, MI, the lot. And that can either link then out to a production workflow and automatically out to a press function and beyond, or it could be that there isn't an MI involved, and it might just be that we're pushing out to a production workflow or possibly even a hot folder structure that just speeds things up.
I was going to ask you about that.
Really, yeah, I think the main thing is that a lot of printers probably aren't looking that way. It's very rare that a printer will wake up one morning and say, I'm going to put a business plan in place to support a web to print investment.
Yeah.
So,
especially in my company, because I don't have MIS properly. I am just hot foldering. Typically, because it's cheap. I haven't made that investment, but I've probably underinvested in my business, and no, my luck, I'll be out of business.
The ROIs are.
Yeah. So, do I need a management information system to before I get down the road of web to print? Should I be learning management information, or is it something that if I haven't got it, I don't need to worry about it, or is it a case of it's chicken or the egg? What comes first, really, MIS or web to print?
Neither, really, Colin. It's very much down to the business, and a lot of it's down to, if a business truly looked at the amount of manual process time and key entering and the rest of it that goes on in their business, they could easily structure a justification to invest in these technologies and have them integrated. But there is no right or wrong. You know, I work with companies that have got no MIS. They work from a series of spreadsheets, and they're absolutely fine. I've got people who've built their own MIS on the back of FileMaker Pro systems. And then I've got people that have invested tens of thousands of pounds.
Right.
I think what happens is if a printer gets to a point where either they need to become more efficient, they're needing to be more granular in their reporting and I guess understanding where the costs are in their business, and MIS is a necessity. Yeah. When it's in place, it definitely saves time, which saves money, it saves repetition, it gives back MI. So there's a definite reason for it. But, you know, the MIS is great, but the beauty is with a web to print is that the web to print can push all that information in there automatically. So we can actually take hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, even more jobs into an MI at any point of the day, 24/7, and it's populated. And that information, together with the high-res file that's been generated by the person procuring the piece of print online, could actually be sent straight out to the RIP and start printing without anyone touching it. And we do have customers that are doing that. And we have customers who are on the way to doing that. So a lot of the time people will buy in a web to print system, put it in place, get it up and running for the client or whatever the trigger was for that investment. And then in time, they'll start looking at what's involved in integrating it and pulling the systems together that are currently probably amazing, but they all work individually. So it's like most things. If you join the dots, you know, the journey's quicker. And that return on investment that can be calculated against the knitting together of these different investments that the company's made, absolutely not only show a return, which is going to generate profit on the book, but it'll also make them potentially more competitive, because all of a sudden jobs that just weren't cost effective can be. So those crappy jobs that no one really wants to do but have to do can actually be profitable. You know, you can do business cards profitably. You can do little flyers profitably. You know, your business might be signage and wide format, but realistically, why would you turn down the rest of the print contract only to allow another printer to come in who's got a more efficient way of managing it, and then they start biting through the backside of the relationship at your business, which is probably the big signage work. So it's a case of putting everything online. And in fairness, guys, tell me a business that out there now that doesn't have an online presence. Tell me an industry that isn't looking at taking their business online. And it still staggers me that, you know, I've been banging this drum for over 20 years, right from when we had dial-up. And skill printers are like, well, I'm not really sure it's for me, you know, and it's bad because through COVID, it's gone off the scale. You know, internet traffic, internet shopping, internet-based print, whether you're buying PPE, Mike, and that could be something that your signage business does, or you're just buying something for a bit of a personalized gift, a card, or maybe a personalized face mask or a mug for a birthday. It's all done online.
Yeah, but I mean,
so why not wouldn't a printer look after the rest of their companies online? Beyond me.
Tim, I have to be honest. I mean, it sounds fantastic. You know, it sounds better to be, but I have a small company. You know, first of all, I don't have tens and thousands of orders. I wish I had. I'm happy with 10 orders, and you know, one of them is a vinyl, and the other one is a textile, and you know, then I have to do some cutting, and so you know, I see some complications. You know, getting the orders in. Okay, you know, I have great salespeople. You know, one, and he's amazing, but you know, he's on the road, and with COVID right now, he's not as much on the road, and I can feel that in my business. I do understand I need to go online, but what kind of infrastructure do I need? I mean, you know, I barely have a website, and let me be honest, I barely have time to maintain my website, and I think that's one of my biggest issues. You know, at night I start doing some of the website, and my wife kind of, you know, complains about it, which I understand because I've been working 8 to 8, you know, and it's not a 9 to 5 Dolly Parton at time anymore.
Yeah, I get you. I think the thing is that it very much depends upon what you're thinking of doing. I mean, ultimately, you've got a situation where I think that the investment is definitely something that needs to be taken into consideration. It doesn't have to be tens of thousands of pounds. You know, you can okay, with a little bit of due diligence. There are platforms out there like our own that will allow you to make an investment in a very low cost, way sub £10,000. But ultimately, there isn't really. I think a lot of people seem to think that the investment into web to print is only possible and viable with massive organisations as customers. It's wrong, and we've got people that are looking after florist shops, small garden centres, who are responding to the weather. All of a sudden it's barbecue season, and then they have a downpour. They still want to make profit, but people aren't shopping for barbecues that weekend. It could be the florist shop wants to have point of sale and cards made up that customers can go to either on their website or on a tablet in their shop to put their greeting on for a customer. I've got local garages, forecourts, funeral directors, estate agents. We're not talking about massive corporations. We do deal with corporations that span the world, multilingual, hundreds of thousands of active sites accessing one portal to procure brands that are all managed cleanly and authorized and paid for in the right way. But you have to be realistically, and the majority of the world is still small to medium sized businesses, and most of the print industry are small to medium sized businesses. Yeah. So getting this type of technology up and running, Mike's not hard and not expensive.
No, okay, I understand. But I mean, again, you talked about an investment of £10,000, which is equivalent to 12,000 euros, international show, guys, and $15,000. I don't know what the Indian rupee exchange is, but the result is that I need to spend 10 to 15K. Is there an opportunity there to do this on a leasing basis? Is this an opportunity to do this as software as a service? Do we have those kind of things to kind of help the smaller companies? As I don't need that much. Although I am still worried and want more explanation on the integration, because I have 3 brands of printers. I have 1 brand of finishing table, and I do differentiate a little bit on which shipper I use. Sometimes I need to ship it with a pallet and I use X, and sometimes I just do a package and a postage and it's a B shipper. So how does that software kind of handle those things? I mean, I have trouble handling it myself.
So I think we take the first point, which is apologies. I've just realised that Arouse Sunshine's decided to come through and murder me.
That's not possible. That's not possible.
No, you look lovely. You look lovely.
That's not possible.
Yeah.
You should have
the sun shines on the righteous, as they say.
Don't worry about that, Tim. You look great.
Anyway, so taking your first point, Mike, there are systems out there that cost very little. You've got your hundreds of dollars investment, monthly payment. And the only trouble with a web to print system you've got to be careful of is you need to think forward, because at some point you will hit a technical cul-de-sac or a technical dead end. The reason being, some of the systems that are very inexpensive only give you a beautiful web interface. They don't consider what's required for the print process at the back end. So I've seen beautiful web to print systems in the world of business to consumer selling all manner of things that give everybody a beautiful graphic user interface, user experience online. It's amazing. But then the poor printer's got this bugger's muddle at the back end to sort out. They have to almost redraw because the file is not good enough to be actually automatically pushed through maybe a management information system or a production workflow, or even just be sent to a RIP to be printed. And obviously one of the processes behind web to print isn't just to give someone a lovely online experience. It's also to automate that back end print. You want to put the onus back on the customer. When they paid for that job or the order's been authorized and it's gone through the system, you want to know when that's coming out, that's printed and ready to go. You don't want some retrospective, clawback saying that that's not what I thought I'd ordered. So always be careful. Do the due diligence at the front end. Make sure that the system has an open, what's called an API, which is effectively the way that you can link your web to print system into a third party. Make sure that system doesn't have any proprietary tie-ups. There are manufacturers out there that will say all manner of things about what they will do, but they won't actually allow you to integrate into anything that doesn't sit within a defined portfolio of technology. What's an
API? What's an API?
An API is a techie term, application programming interface. The way it was described to me, simply because I'm a technical veneer, is that if the room you're sitting in is a piece of software, an API is effectively the doors and windows. It's a route in and out of that technology that allows you to bring other technologies in. So it's how you effectively link things together. So going to Mike's conversation about how I integrate, most technologies out there now don't really care what the back-end press process is. It will just create a high-res PDF with all of the print furniture, as in tick marks, crop marks, if you like, color bars, etc., so that when the file hits print, it's ready to go. So that's fine. In terms of going on to the other question Mike mentioned, in terms of, not only do you now have a mixed array of output devices that do a mixed array of print types and probably a mixed array of print processes, but you also are in the future going to no doubt invest in new tech. And you don't want to be in a situation again where you end up in some kind of technical dead end that doesn't allow you to link into a piece of technology that you've got or you're about to buy. So the other thing you need to do, and it's all due diligence, you need to just make sure that you've got written in tablets of stone from these manufacturers that they are open to it integrating with back end. But ultimately, Mike, what actually comes from the web to print system when it's generated is an amount of code which is dependent upon the manufacturer as to how good that code is and how comprehensive it is. And that code will be accompanied by the high-res file that's being generated for output. Obviously, normally a PDF, but there are systems that will output other file formats to do things like online. It could be HTML, it could be a JPEG or whatever. But if we're dealing with the print process, you imagine a high-res PDF coming out of the back end of this web to print system that's ready to go. It's signed off, it's paid for, it's printed, it's authorized. The file is ready to be sent straight to the RIP, so you might as well print it. And no one needs to open it, check it, send a proof back to the customer, make a phone call. All of that process and malarkey is gone. The file that's accompanying that product is often a CXML file, which is, again, because Cole probably asked, it's a raw data file containing all the information on who did what, where, and when. And that information would be used to be ingested into the management information system or another type of system that will allow at least the ability to create a digital job bag that you won't have to rekey. So you should be looking at a system that's impartial to the print device, impartial to the management information system, and impartial to whatever you might want to bring out in the future. Okay, and if it can't do that and they won't give you the guarantees, run.
They don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can imagine that. It's still kind of, how do I say, it kind of boggles me how, the customer sends me a file and an order. I get that part. The problem I see, and I understand for Colin it would be easy. He has a sheet feed B1 press, and sheet feed, that's the size, but I have small devices on UV. I have a 3.2 meter textile printer. I'm looking at this moment at a 5 meter ViewTech. The sizes of my customers are all different, and sometimes they want 1, sometimes they want 5. Does your software combine orders that so it makes it more efficient, or
the
do I still have to do that myself?
Yeah, so we would send a file down. There could be triggers attached to that file that allow you to, if your production workflow. So say for instance you have I don't know, a Kodak Printhead, an on-focus switch, an Ag for Apogee, something along those lines. If you have a production workflow, or you just have a series of hot folders with a degree of intelligence on the receiving end of the file that's coming in from the web to print system, any number of things can take place. It could be file checking and correction, it could be reporting, it could be redirection in and out of different devices, whatever you need. But in its raw form, a file will come in as a singular file. It would hit a hot folder that might have an automatic instruction to maybe drop, I don't know, a dozen up on a sheet, 6 up on a sheet. So it's just doing a simple step and repeat. Once it's done, it's sent to the RIP and it's printed. So there are a lot of intelligences that you can be put there. But if in the raw form, Mike, taking on board what you've said about a printer without either the foresight to make this kind of investment or the budget, you don't need MIS, you don't need production workflow, you don't even need a printer. You can literally just print manage. So if you suddenly shut down shop, as a lot of printers have during COVID, because they've furloughed staff or whatever the reason is, they can still keep going. And all they need to do is set up a partnership with a third-party print company, a trade printer, a partner, a friend down the road, whatever it might be, and you just redirect the file straight to that particular output device at the other location. So, we're talking about slewing the file from your own production environment out to somewhere else. And this is one of the reasons why, again, a lot of printers are now diversifying. They are actually taking web to print on, not because it's what they have, internally within production. It's because they know they can manage a much wider array of products that probably don't sit within their natural plant listing. So it might be that you're a signage business, but you've got the opportunity to print, I don't know, maybe direct mail or short run, small format, cut sheet digital, or a LIFO run for a brochure. Just because you don't have that kit, if you set up alliances with any number of the trade entities that are in the market or partner companies here or abroad, you can literally have that job come in. It could be procured, ordered, and it could be fulfilled, whether that's coming direct from a warehouse or it's being printed by a printer in Germany and it's being shipped to Poland. It doesn't matter. So don't ever get hung up on the lack of infrastructure that you've got on a workflow or an MIS basis. Yes,
but
it's
can
ideal.
I do it the other way around? In other words, I want to facilitate to Colin my ViewTech printers and my other machinery. It would be
Absolutely.
great if I have a web to print, but Colin has a different front end. So it doesn't look like Mike's print shop, but it looks like Colin's printing company, Acme. Is it, do you have those kind of things? The possibilities.
Yeah, so I mean, it falls into that very, very broad, overused term of integration, and everybody says we can integrate, but when push comes to shove, there aren't a lot that can. So when integration comes in, effectively, if you imagine you were working that way and you've got these ViewTechs, and by the way, if you've got a load of ViewTechs, I assume that a web to print investment is not a problem, given how much you spent on lumps of tin that put marks on paper. So you've just shot yourself in the foot on that one.
Very true, very true. But these are very old ViewTechs that I got secondhand, and one of them came out of a company that went broke. So I still need to get heads for that. But you want to go for that, Tim? That's fine.
So I mean, yes, you could effectively set up an environment that would be Mike's print shop, and then you could go to a friend who needs access to your super wide format devices for printing latex or something. And it could just be that you just dress the front end to look like your friend's website or your friend's brand, but effectively they're procuring work on yours. So yes, you can do that. You did also mention a little while ago about investment. Many of these systems aren't enormously expensive. They're all what are called SaaS, software as a service, or what's better known as cloud. And the cloud systems out there effectively have the ability to scale to suit whatever your requirement. But what tends to happen is that there's one of a number of ways that these things are paid for. Obviously, there's a deployment cost that relates to what it's going to cost to actually physically deploy, train, and get you ready to go. And everybody works differently on that front. And then what follows is any number of terminologies will cover this. But effectively, there will be a monthly charge that will either be billed to you, the customer, on a pay-as-you-go basis, based upon the throughput of orders or line items or transactions. Everyone will cost it differently. And now that can be on a pay-as-you-go basis, which will have obviously a peaks and trough through the months. Or you can go on a monthly basis where effectively you make a commitment, as you probably do with presses, that allows you to estimate roughly what you're going to be doing for the year or the month, make a commitment to that level, and then pay a fixed fee every month for that period that's then monitored through the year and allows you to adjust the tables and the levels according to the way that your business online is ebbing and flowing. You might have peaks at Christmas or at Valentine's Day or around sporting events. So the investment's not massive. In terms of investment on let's say a more traditional basis, of funding, of financing, again, depending upon who your funder is, and there are differing approaches to this, you can make an investment into the system and effectively forecast your usage over, say, a 3 or a 5 year period, but invest all in one hit and finance it with maybe a capital piece of equipment like a press or a wide format print engine. So there are ways of doing it. The other ways I've seen people fund is there's still business development grants and funds available, certainly in the UK and across Europe. Obviously, across Europe, once Brexit's here, isn't going to really affect the UK. That would be EU grants. But there are things in the UK like LEPs, which are local enterprise partnership funds, whereby you put a business plan together against your investment. They favour things that are working in areas that aren't particularly affluent or are supporting job security or job growth. And they will often fund 30, 40% of your investment. There's also the, I think it's called the, and I think it's a manufacturing growth fund. But there are a number of these things out there that, again, you can tap into. And, you know, if you talk to any of your national bodies, whether it's the IPIA, the BPIF, whether it's PICON, any of these organizations that represent our industry and the multifacets within it, will point you in the right direction of who you probably need to speak to. Or you can phone me up. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. Drop me a line and just say, Tim, what were you on about? Can you help me? You know, this isn't something that anyone gets commission on. This is just a nice way of enabling people to maximise their investment with some support and funding from the government. So the investment's not massive, right?
Absolutely. If you can get some cash from the government, I would definitely do it. I know a lot of printers in, you know, the new European countries. I think Scotland is coming up. But, you know, it is something which is definitely, you know, valuable to do research on and make sure that you can get some, you know, some extra support.
And, you know, ask for help. People are out there. Absolutely. And if you don't get an answer or you get a kind of guarded response from someone, move on and find someone else. You know, Colin's got a network of, well, I know you have as well, Mike, but, you know, you've got massive networks out there. You know, if you're not getting the right answer from the salesperson, the supporting company, the company that's trying to sell you the system, you know, or people in the industry, move on, find someone else. There's loads of people out there that will help.
Yeah. We always know people, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah,
Tim,
exactly.
Let me ask you, Tim, talking about funding and these sorts of things, does web to print come under that side of R&D tax credits? You know,
yes,
it does. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
You've got to be clever. You know, R&D is something that everybody kind of, there's a lot of people out there making a quick buck percentage for filling in what is ultimately a laborious, time-consuming form that most people, if they apply themselves, could do. But yeah, I mean, most manufacturers of software and hardware are basically tapping into the R&D tax credit. And understanding what that is also massively important. And, you know, ask your accountant. If your accountant hasn't got that as a skill set, ask them if they can refer you to someone that does. Because R&D is, as it sounds, it's research and development, meaning that there is even a percentage back if you employ the services of a consultant to help you identify through research and development where your market opportunities are, put a strategic plan together. That consultancy fee and all the work involved in it can be offset. So can any unique code that's being written into or around. It is a grey area because a lot of it's about unique writing. It's all about intellectual property. But yeah, it's definitely an area worth looking at. And, you know, it shouldn't just be something that's looked at as an investment return for web to print involvement. You know, I've seen people change the way that they do their business. You know, they've written very innovative websites. You know, they've put things into place that absolutely fall completely into that funnel that is the R&D tax credit. So absolutely, Cole, it's a really important thing for every business to look at.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I want to add on that, Colin, that, you know, a lot of people don't know that consultancy and, you know, as a consultant these days is something you can write off in many different ways, you know. And a lot of people kind of get stuck in their own companies and kind of find out that, you know, what's the next step? You know, where do I go? And you can ask Uncle Joe, and, you know, he always gives good answers, but it's not as professional as having an outside person coming to your company and looking at and saying, this is wrong, or this is right. You know, I remember the days of consultancy, you know, 10 years ago, the consultant would come into a bigger company, you know, mostly the corporates, and would say yes to everything the person would say. So they would be happy and they will continue to do more consultancy. At the end of the day, nothing happened. You know, that this is the vision of a lot of people that have consultancy. You know, this guy comes in, he tells me what we think, and he tells us we're right. So, he leaves and that's it. The right consultant, and this is very important, the right consultant is the one that basically shows you the mirror and tells you you're wrong, or I would do this differently because of A, B, C, D, or E. And I think if you look at the signage companies and even bigger print companies, litho companies that are having problems today, one of the things they need is a solution, and that could be web to print, it could be something else, but let's keep it on web to print. But they need somebody from externally to say, okay, in this company as you're running it today, this needs to change to make it successful. This is what you need to do. And this is one of the problems I see in general when especially in these COVID times, where people say, oh my God, let's stop spending, no more money, marketing, gone, that's gone. Consultancy, out of the door. By the way, no more coffee for my employees because, whatever reason, it's because of COVID, I don't want them gathering together. No more customer support and customer services. I've noticed that myself. When you make calls, you get long waiting lines and telling you that because of COVID, people can't speak anymore. So get that consultant, get that information. And if you can't get it through LinkedIn or some contacts, or through us, or other, consultants out there, make sure that you don't invest in something that is not going to be something you want to have. There's a lot of companies out there selling you stuff, and I know Tim is one of the exceptions, but there's a lot of people out there selling stuff that just want to sell. Yeah. The sales guy's there to make his commission, and he really doesn't give a ... about your company. He cares about one thing, his commission. And then a consultant outside, or a business development consultant, which they're out there, or a management consultant, can give you that edge that you need today. And I think that's quite important if you want to invest into something like Web2 or an MIS.
I'm worried.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm worried.
I think the scary...
I'm going to take over your business, because I'm going to have, after this conversation and after the broadcast, I'm going to be talking to
buy me out.
No. Hey, why? I don't need to buy you out. I'll buy a couple of B1 presses, and we should be up and running and killing your business.
No, because I can buy used Vutex too. There's nothing to stop me doing that.
You don't have the customers. And that's the next point, Tim. My customers are all B2B customers. And, I kind of wonder how my B2B, consumer to business, the Amazon people, logging in, getting a nice canvas print. And those were the days. But those are kind of gone to the really big guys, the Picanovas, the Simpresses of the world. But my customers are B2B. How would they what's the benefit for them? Let's put it that way. What is the benefit for a B2B customer?
I think the main thing is you've got to start at the top of the tree really and work out what the motivation is. And that motivation is normally a brand or a brand governor, maybe an agency, a marketing company or something, who are trying to reduce costs, trying to reduce error, trying to reduce maverick spend, trying to reduce abuse of brand. And the only way they can do that is if they lock it down. And if they make it available to everybody throughout, whatever their network is, whether they're a network marketing organization, whether they're a brand, a franchise, a membership organization, a charity, it doesn't matter what it is, a retail brand. But there's one brand that's created. They spend hundreds of thousands of pounds creating that brand. And then historically, they just let anyone abuse it as they like. Put images where they like, use fonts, change colors. And then it's the printer's problem because the printer's produced a job that should have been in one particular Pantone, but because it's been abused, it's gone wrong. So first reason why these brands will do it is they want control back. They want security back. They want MI, management information. They want to see who's doing what, where, and when. They want to see how successful it was. They don't want to print 50,000 brochures anymore. They want to print 5,000. They want to sense check them. Or they want to be able to respond to the market in that come autumn, that brand will change. They might want to, they might be a company that are producing electronics goods that are being shipped out to 4 locations globally. And in each location, they have a different power supply, or they have a different relationship, or they have different service level agreements. And they can't any longer produce things the way they were because the world's changing. And I think what the problem is with a lot of people that represent print, whether they're print managers with no plant equipment or setup, or they are printers per se, is this sounds daft. My dad was a printer, so I never feel like I'm having a pop. But ultimately, printers are notoriously quite bad at marketing themselves, and they're often quite bad at communicating the real USPs of why a client would want to work with them or what their presses will do for their client. Instead, they spend too much time talking about service, price, time in business, how much money the grey press was that sits in the centre of their factory. People don't care. They just don't care. I mean, my wife has never said to me once, what was this printed on? She might say it looks nice, it feels nice, it smells nice, but that's it. They don't care. And brands don't care either. So I think that one of the most important things for a printer is to understand how to better market themselves, regardless of their tech. And I think that they need to understand the essence of who they are. And then I think they need to learn how to have that conversation.
Yeah, we've had that conversation before. I mean, our general population of printers and sign makers are still waiting for the phone to ring. And this is it's a little bit of logical. We all became printers because we were techies. You needed to be technical. You needed to understand how to make colors and those kind of things, and how to.
But it's not the field of dreams, Mike, is it?
No,
if you build it, they won't.
But the reality, and I agree, the reality is very simple. A customer, like my wife or your wife, they care about what it looks like. And if it looks good, if the paper is thick enough or thin enough or whatever, they're happy. And I think most brand managers need to. One of the opportunities, I think, for Vpress and any web to print solution is internally in corporates. And this is something you'll probably be doing a lot of, where bigger companies like the corporates in the world, the HPs, the Ricos, even others, the Boeings, where they will set this up internally for their internal print shops, where business cards are all produced, where brochures are produced locally. Not everything is in the sign maker shop that I have had, and let's stop that now. I just went broke, but the reality is that this is a B2B could be internally as well, and a lot of people kind of underestimate that the bigger size companies really have a problem getting their business cards the same color. I've seen if I look at my collection of business cards, even companies like Nike, I have 6 business cards of Nike, different people from different regions, and the orange is different for each single one of them. And I don't think the marketing department in Portland ever thought that would be happening. They expected all to print the same. I think there's an opportunity there for also people, working for these bigger corporates to put something in-house. Help the in-house repro departments and link into what you have to that in-house repro department. Just imagine that a Boeing wanted to have 6 big banners. Well, they can do this internally and link it to me, and I will print them, and they would never know the difference. And I think that's an opportunity that a lot of people are underestimating, the broadness and the scale of this. And I think, it goes really from label to packaging.
I think the thing is with web to print, it's just a trigger conversation for a much bigger strategy. And I think that, most printers, regardless of what they're producing, what presses they're running on, need to really start looking at their business and seeing where the grey costs are in their business. I've always taken a very consultative approach to a client's requirements, understand why they're doing it, what their motivations are. And it's really, really important, because ultimately a lot of the investments that people are now making in tech can very easily be justified if you can show where that return on investment is through automation and efficiency saving. But I think the other thing that a lot of people are doing within web to print now, there are, most of the companies that are making, except for the big few, most of the companies in the print sector that are doing web to print are actually making their money from B2B transactions. They're controlling brands online, and they're managing the print output back to the client in conjunction with other office-based products and marketing tech. But when those printers want to go B2C, you're looking at the land grab having already taken place in amongst the big players in the market. You've got the Vista Prints in the UK. You've got the Moonpigs and the Funky Pigeons. You've got people that are doing trade print, that are doing everything from selfie frames to pop-ups. So they're there. So I think if someone's going to invest in B2C, I think there needs to be a reality check on just what's involved. And I think that just by building a beautiful website and putting some amazing products on there that are cheap, it's not going to work. So you've either got to have a war chest budget to support what you've got to do online to SEO the hell out of your site to make it compete, so you don't end up on page 3 of Google, which is where all the dead bodies are kept. What you need to do is you need to maybe have a look at your business. And I think the only real successes I can see for a small to medium-sized print business online with a B2C transaction is if they either go with their locality, like the geography around them, and they offer incentive to people close to them to utilize themselves through whatever it might be, service, response, whatever. And this can be done through a number of means. I mean, they can market using local tools. It could be a local newspaper or a magazine, House Gazette, whatever it might be. It might be a local radio station just to build the brand, which cuts down the investment on SEO and web traffic. And the other way that it will work is if you have a unique. And that unique could be something I can't imagine. I mean, you know, personalized coffins, I don't know, printing on toilet seats. I have no idea what it is. But if you have that unique, when people are searching, there's less traffic out there that you've got to carve through. So the implementing the web to print is the inexpensive, easy bit, you know, within the B2C world. The expensive bit is the marketing, which comes back to what I said earlier on. And I think it's that printers, going back to what you said, Mike, if they don't have internally the skill sets to control and build a sales and marketing plan around their investment, bring someone in from outside to help you oversee and implement it. There are plenty of companies out there that are small to medium-sized agencies that will help you optimize a website, build the environment, put a campaign together to hit the market you're after, and obviously be an ongoing partner to support what your marketing message is. You know, because when we were young, which was an incredible amount of time ago, you know, before...
Speak for yourself.
It was 5, 6 years, right, Tim?
It's been a testing life. But no, but seriously...
It was great to have you on the show, Tim.
But seriously, guys, you know, years ago, there were 4 marketing channels. It was TV, radio, print, and cinema. That was it. Yeah. And print was everything from a poster to whatever. Now, you got thousands. You know, what man, woman, child could actually navigate that and work out what's best? You know, and the amount of people that get it wrong. So I think, go back to what I said earlier, ask for help. Employ the service of a consultant, not someone who's going to tell you what's wrong with your business. Someone's going to identify what's wrong or understand what you're trying to achieve and put together a plan that they will work with you on to deploy and achieve. No one wants someone who's going to come in their business and go, well, that's wrong, and that's wrong, because that's no good to anyone. Most people can do that. The trick is to identify those problems, find a solution for those problems, implement it, and drive that business forward. And that's where there's a difference between a consultant and a consultant.
So, Tim,
absolutely.
In a realistic sort of way, I mean, based upon what I've told you about Acme, what's the sort of, you know, my biggest concern is my staff. They're not going to get their heads around this. You know, I've got an estimator. He's almost as old as I am. He's been doing it for years. You know, I'm going to have to retrain him, aren't I? Is there going to be a lot of work involved here?
No. Depends on the personality.
Really?
You know, I know people who are, you know, I've done business with, and I regularly speak to people who are in their 60s and 70s still wanting to work in the industry. They're furtive minds. They are exploratory in the way they think. They're excited by tech. They're excited by the possibilities. You can have someone who's exactly the same, that's just counting the days off the calendar for their retirement. They don't want to do anything. And you'll find the same with sales teams or customer-focused teams. You'll always have Johnny Hotshot who'll adopt everything. They'll be out the door before they even have a chance to, you know, finish the training. Then you're going to have the middle ground that are a bit nervous by things. You know, the internet's not something they're comfortable with. You know, it's an area that they've used socially rather than for business. So they'll need a little bit of nurturing and help. And then there are the people that you've described, Cole. They're the people that are sitting there, they're not interested. And I think that this is the sea change in a lot of businesses that have got to go through. in 10 years' time, anyone that hasn't adopted these types of online technologies, and I'm not just talking about web to print, will be struggling to stay in business unless they have a really, really clear, profitable, unique. There are bookbinders out there that are doing incredible work. There are letterpress printers that are producing stuff that is beautiful, like beautiful. I call it nickable print. It's stuff that I want to take home. But anyone who's playing in that general print market, in that small to medium sized space and bigger, and we've seen a lot of the big companies fall this year, not because of COVID, because they're just not investing, and not just monetary, but also emotional and on an intelligence level, they're not investing in this. Don't be frightened to bring someone in with no print experience. Don't worry about that. That's not really a problem. I mean, if you take the average age of a print buyer out there, if all of the rumored stories are true, they're kind of under 30 with a graduate background and no experience in print. Why on earth would a 55, 65-year-old person have the ability to, take them out for a game of golf at the end of the week or treat them like they do traditional customers? These people are working differently. They think differently. They behave. They communicate differently. So, embrace people of the right age. And the print industry is desperate for it. It's starting to change. It's a desperate state of affairs to look at going to an event and seeing it just heavily male orientated by middle-aged and older men. It's just the wrong way. We need to change it. It has to be changed massively. And there are certain organizations that are popping up now who I have to say, I have to applaud them. They're young, they're keen, they're hungry, they are exciting, and they're brave, and they'll go at something and they won't worry about, it screwing up. They'll take themselves out of their comfort zones. And I think this is what printers have got to learn to do. You can't be, like my dad was, a small to medium-sized print entity that relies upon a traditional approach to it. I mean, thankfully, my dad's retired now. He's been safe from all this anxiety. But there are still a lot of people out there that are struggling. And Mike, Cole, you know them. You know these people. Yeah. And some of them don't want help. They'll say they do, but they don't. But then there's others that really do want help. They're open and they're receptive and they have, the ability to invest. So, time's now to help people get to
I was having a conversation with my window cleaner of all people, right? Who he asks you what you do for a living and you don't want to get drawn into it. So you say, I work in print, right? And then he says, oh, so does my wife. And before you know it, you're having a conversation about the wife's firm and she's working for a bloke who's inherited the business from the father. That it's a family business, but the kid hasn't got a clue. Right, and that's where the problem lies now. Is you've got a lot of family type things going on where the son or the daughter doesn't really want to be there, but the old man's still in the business a little bit, just in the background, and it's like, oh, where do I go from here, And they're making cock-ups all over the place, and that worries the hell out of me. It really does when I see that.
Well, I mean, sometimes, Colin, you have to let go.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that you can keep on stretching it, but it will break. I think that one of the things that Tim said, which I really like and I agree with him, is we cannot all be Vista prints. You can buy the best MIS ERP web to print solution. That space of that type of company is gone. Or very, very difficult to get. You need a serious financial support to get that done. But when you look at, I am the printer, the preferred printer of Macclesfield, a small, rural town close to Manchester. You now have a very definite customer base that is willing to work with you, that is willing to invest. But they would like to do things online because, yes, even in Macclesfield, the bakery shop would like to have 6 posters, but they don't have the time to go on the daytime to your shop and talk to you about it. They will basically send it online and get it done. And I think this is where a lot of companies, if they look at their possibilities, you can be small, look at local, maybe expand into a little bit, your surrounding areas, but don't go crazy. You don't need to. 80% of your customer base will be, in the reach of 50 miles. Why go
Yeah.
crazy and go everywhere and try to become, I'm in Southampton, but I would like to be the printer of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Don't,
Yeah.
just keep that. The M25 would be your border. Don't go further than that from Southampton to
Albeit,
M25.
Mike, the beauty is with an online technology like a web to print system, is that you can look after your local company. But what you can do is, if you do have an office in Southampton or you have an office in Austria, effectively you can actually have that printed locally. So you can still look after a global concern or a nationwide concern or a multiple office. But you're right. If you're marketing to your local business, most print businesses in the UK are dealing, as you said, with business within their geography. There are people beyond that, but that normally tends to be where it is if you look at it on a ratio. So I completely agree with you.
Mm-hmm. So it really comes down to you've got to start thinking about forward planning for your business. If you haven't
Absolutely.
got web to print, I mean, I like to think this has been a very good explanation. Thank you, Tim. But there's still so much of it, isn't there? I mean, it really, it's not a universal panacea. It's every company is different, so you've got to weigh up the pros and cons. And I guess that's where a lot of your time gets taken up, is going in and meeting people and really weighing up what their individual needs are.
Yeah. It's that old adage, there's so many overused phrases about the Aesop's fables, and there's the sharpen the axe, and there's fail to plan to fail. Ultimately, everyone should be really looking at their business now. If they haven't looked at their business through lockdown, and they haven't realised now that their business can function with maybe 2/3 the staff, and that they've outsourced the non-profitable work to printers that can do it at cost, and they make a small slithered buck on the back of it, this is what people should be doing. I could have come on this conversation today and not even talked about web to print, because web to print is one aspect of a printer's implemented business plan. Web to print will allow them to better control and lock down the customers, give them better management information, whether that's through a management information system or they're dragging it down from the web to print system itself. It will make their internal processes more efficient. It will cut time and effort down on the costly side of the business in terms of proofing. All of the, you think about a conversation with a customer just to get a job through. How many phone calls are made backwards and forwards? How many sending of proofs, whether they're electronic or physical? Then when it gets to production, someone's opening it up. They've got 15 minutes gazing at a PDF, running it out, imposing it, dealing with that. All of a sudden, a web to print system, just being one aspect of this, can take all of that out and automate it. So you can either put people who are so busy that they need to spend their time on other things. You can automate that task. You could reduce the head count, which turns me into the Grim Reaper when I have those conversations. But ultimately, that efficiency is there. Now, if you can equate that time, repetition, waste, error, compensation claims sometimes because you printed something that someone's not admitting to it being their error, all of that money comes back into the bottom line. We're talking about the difference between a job being profitable and not profitable, you being competitive and not being competitive. And that's just web to print. If you then start looking at other areas of your production workflow, utilizing RIP architecture, whether it's an EFI command workstation and you're putting together a series of clever hot folders, or you've got an on-focus switch, which is an incredible tool for just creating a plethora of workflow environments, scenarios, little jobs, short tracks. These are things that are realistically going to be the things that will save the business. But I think historically in print, unless it weighs 16 ton, is sprayed gunmetal grey and had to have the floor reinforced, it doesn't seem to carry any value because it's not tangible. What is a web to print system? Well, it's a series of ones and zeros that lives in a cloud that no one really understands, but talks about all the time as if it's this tangible entity in their life.
Well, that's a perfect summation and a great close to the show. Thank you,
I would
Tim.
like to add one more thing, Colin, just to finish on Tim. Don't fire your staff. Get them on the phone to call your customers.
I wouldn't dream of it.
That's just to make sure that we don't get into that situation. So you use your staff and the extra time to call your customers for new jobs. Tim, thank you very
lots
much.
of use of your time.
Yeah. Tim, thank you so much. I could talk to you for hours about this subject. I really enjoy it, and I find you very
we need alcohol
fascinating.
for that to happen, Carl.
Next time, maybe. Next time. As long as we don't live in Wales. So until next time, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Tim Cox. Thank you, Mike Horston.
And don't forget, Colin, you need to subscribe and you need to like us, because the more likes we get, the more likes you will get.
There you go. See you next time. Bye.
Good to see you. Thank you for your time. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.